Slamming Sammy Sneed starts in a thriller that ends up in a three-way tie. Next day, in an 18-hole playoff,
Big shots.
Throughout history, golfers have always wanted to improve their equipment by making technological advances in their golf clubs. The general focus for golfers all around the world has been to hit the ball longer and straighter more consistently. The game of golf has been around since the 15th century, and golfers have changed drastically from then on. In the early ages of the game of golf, golfers would make their own golf clubs out of wood. People started becoming specialized in the building of sets. Generally, the head of the golf clubs was made out of pear or beech wood, and the shaft of the club was made out of ash. Around the year 1826, after many people had already started experimenting by forging iron into the golf faces, a club maker named Robert Forgan started using hickory to build the clubs. Hickory was then used for a very long time, as it is a very resistant and durable type of wood. It wasn't until the start of the century of the 1900s when the materials and design of the golf clubs started to change drastically. Factories could mass produce the heads of the golf clubs out of iron, and the golf associations around the world allowed the use of steel shafts instead of wood. Due to the specific properties of these materials that were lighter and denser, golfers started to hit the ball further. In the year 1963, all of the golf clubs were mass-produced, making them much more affordable. In the decade of 1970, people started to change the center of gravity of the golf club by changing the weight distribution around the face of the club. This not only maximized the ball speed, but the clubs also became more forgiving when golfers didn't strike the center of the club face. In the year 1973, the graphite shaft was introduced. Alongside steel shafts, graphite shafts are the ones that all clubs use. Being even lighter than steel shafts, graphite allowed golfers to swing the club faster. In the year 1991, the brand Callaway Golf introduced the Big Bertha driver. This was one of the first driver heads that were made out of metal. However, it was a lot bigger than normal. The head measured 190 cubic centimeters and was noticeably bigger when compared to the previous driver heads that all measured less than 100 cubic centimeters. They discovered that a bigger head would maximize distance and make the shots more consistent, as there was more space to make contact with the ball. The bigger heads became very popular and were the ones that we still use nowadays. The maximum size of our driver heads nowadays is 460 cubic centimeters. Golf clubs have kept evolving, especially the woods. Materials such as carbon fiber and titanium have been implemented in the building of woods, as well as custom graphite shafts depending on the golfer's performance. These materials have unique properties that result in a better performance for the user. The latest woods have also become adjustable, allowing the golfer to open or close the club face depending on the direction they want their golf balls to go. After noticing the great change that golf clubs have had over the years, and how innovation in science and technology has allowed manufacturers to improve them, I wanted to test the difference that 67 years of progress made to the golf clubs. If science and technology have been so useful for humanity, would a driver designed in 2016 perform better than the one designed in 1949? And if so, would a golfer's game improve by acquiring more recent golf clubs? To answer these questions, I tested two different drivers by myself, from two very different times. After collecting and analyzing the data, I got some very interesting results. The first club I tested was the Ben Hogan McGregor driver. This club is made out of hickory wood and the shaft is made out of steel. It was produced in the year 1949. The second club I tested was the Callaway XR16 driver. It was produced in the year 2016. This club is made out of titanium and carbon fiber, and the shaft is made out of graphite. The first noticeable thing about this newer driver is it's different in size compared to the older one. Not only is this club bigger, but the feel and the sound it makes when it strikes the ball is also very different. I hit 5 shots with each golf club and measured the distance, ball speed, club speed, and smash factor using a launch monitor. The smash factor is a measure of how effective a golf shot is, that divides the ball speed by the swing speed. Individually, I immediately felt that the newer driver performed better than the other one. However, after finding averages, interpreting the data, and watching the footage on a computer program, I was surprised about the difference in performance. The XR driver allowed me to swing the club at 101.6 miles per hour on average, which was 6.2 miles per hour faster than the McGregor. This caused that, on average, the XR driver allowed me to produce a ball speed of 140.6 miles per hour, while the McGregor driver allowed me to create 130.8 miles per hour. When seen in context, 9.8 miles per hour has a big influence of the distance in the shot. In terms of smash factor, there was only a 0.01 difference between the 1.38 smash factor of the Callaway driver and the 1.37 smash factor of the Ben Hogan one. However, as this measure takes into account both swing speed and ball speed, which were noticeably higher on the newer model, the difference in distance was massive. With a 36-yard difference, the Callaway XR16 driver sent the ball 277.6 yards on average, while the Ben Hogan McGregor driver only sent it 241.6 yards. In addition, the 5 golf shots hit with the Callaway driver had a surprisingly improved dispersion in comparison to the older model. This means that in terms of direction, the newer driver was much more consistent. So it is true, having a newer golf club allowed me to create 36 more yards while using the same swing and not changing my effort. For any golfer, a 36-yard gain in distance is very influential for their overall game. Not only will the golf holes play shorter for them, but when they have a shorter club for their second or third shots, they will control the ball better and land it closer to the pin. Also, if they take into account the improvement in direction I had with the new driver, they will find themselves hitting from the fairway more frequently instead of hitting from the rough or out of a bunker. I found that it is completely beneficial for a golfer to own the most recent possible golf clubs if they want to maximize their performance. But because of this, there has to be a scientific reason behind how 67 years of golf manufacturing progress created 36 yards of distance. So, why did this happen? The first thing that golf companies have changed is the material of the golf club's heads. Some of the most common materials used today are titanium, carbon fiber, and other metals. What this does is that by being lighter, they can reduce the weight of the club head and make it even bigger without gaining mass, increasing the surface area of the face. This not only allows the golfer to swing the club faster, but by increasing the surface area, the golfer can make better contact with the ball and not lose any distance. To improve the design of their golf clubs, golf manufacturers use Newton's first law of motion called inertia. More specifically, they focus on the moment of inertia that happens when a golf ball is struck by a club. This depends on the amount of resistance imposed by a golf ball at rest to the club in motion. By modifying the club faces to reduce this amount of resistance, the moment of inertia of the collision of these two objects is increased. The higher this moment of inertia is, the more effective the golf club will be. The coefficient of retribution of golf clubs is a concept that all manufacturers have to have in mind when creating new designs. This concept is based on how much energy loss there is when there is energy transfer between two objects. In golf, these two objects would be the ball and the club face. The less energy loss there is at impact, the further the ball will go. To do this, manufacturers have used thinner layers of materials for the club face, making the COR as low as possible. Thinner faces create the effect called the trampoline effect, which also allows the golfer to increase distance. However, it also contributes to the forgiveness of the club. Forgiveness has been a key concept to making golf clubs better in the last few years. The smaller the club head was, the harder it was for the golfer to get consistent distance out of it, as striking the center is harder. In fact, most of the distance loss I got from the older driver was because I didn't hit the center of the club face. Think of it as a trampoline. If a person jumps in the middle of it, they will jump higher. If the surface of the trampoline is thinner, they will also jump higher. Meanwhile, the jump on the sides of the trampoline will be lower. By increasing the size of the center of the club and making it thinner, a person has more space to make the ball jump higher and therefore cover a longer distance. Manufacturers have modified the golf clubs using the coefficient of retribution, moment of inertia, and many other scientific concepts to maximize the performance of their golf clubs. They have managed to find the balance point of the thickness of a golf club so that it resists high impacts. All of this rounds up to making a golf club that allows the user to get the most consistent distance out of it with the least amount of effort. Nevertheless, the significant progress of golf equipment around the years has also happened due to the advances in the design of golf balls, golf shafts, and the general knowledge of the golf swing in general. However, after finding results by myself, I can conclude that acquiring new equipment will essentially maximize the performance of a golfer, increasing the distance, forgiveness, and quality of their games.